Welcome to another episode. I am here to tell you that there is an unspoken truth about co-parenting. And these are some of the things that you may not consider when you are in a relationship. Y'all about to have a baby. Maybe y'all gonna get married, maybe you won't. Maybe, you're destined to be a baby daddy, she's destined to be a baby mama. But before we go ahead and get into that, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Let's go ahead and get into this topic. Now, the unspoken truth about co-parenting. Now, I'm going to tell you this from my experience, and maybe you'll be able to relate. Hopefully, you are able to relate. But I've co-parented for the last 17 years, and I can be honest with you, the first 3 years were horrible. I was told that I couldn't see my son. I was told that I couldn't give him Christmas gifts. I was told a lot of things. So I'm hoping that those of you that have not had kids, or those that you are going to have kids, or those of you in the midst of a child support battle can take my words and my experience and then pursue them further and do something differently than what I did when, I was going to be full custody of my son, going to have full custody of my son and everything. Now, let's talk about what happens after the pregnancy. Now, whether y'all are together or y'all not together, there's going to be some changes. Now, if y'all not together, then understand that there may be some resentment. Or you could have that partner where y'all are actually cool and y'all can actually communicate with each other. And that's going to be one of the greatest things that you're going to have to overcome is communication. Because if the person has spite for you, or if they dislike you in any kind of way, it is going to be displayed in full force. Now, whether it's about the baby, it's not even going to be a part of the conversation. It's more so going to be spite towards you and not letting you see the child, not letting you be there for the child, and all those things that come behind it, throwing you on child support and everything. Those things happen, those things occur. So my best suggestion to that is to avoid all of that, is try to be the active parent. Try to be ahead of the curve. If they're going to talk about going down and putting you on child support, even though it pains me to say this, because I did it myself, I put myself on child support. Go and put yourself on child support. You may not want to do that. It may not even be susceptible, but if you do it, at least you get yourself ahead of the curve and kind of weed out whatever is being said that can get them to take majority of the money from you. And you can go ahead and fight for your own case. It's not really a good thing to be reactive. Because when you're reactive to the situation, then you're waiting for the issue to happen, and then you're going to go and then deal with it then. But if you jump ahead of the curve and, whether you go and start it or you found out that they filed the paperwork, you go file your own motion, file your own documentation, then you're being more proactive than you are reactive. Some situations cause for a person to be proactive, meaning you have to go out there and you have to get it before shit hits the fan, and you got to go ahead and put the pedal to the metal. Don't just wait around for it to happen. So at any point in time during the whole time that you have a child, I would definitely say try to stay ahead of the curve. Try to keep the communication open, especially if you're not going to be together. If you already got great communication, that's good. If you don't, you have to develop it. Now, if y'all just flat out hate each other, I can't help you there. Like, I don't even know what to tell you. Y'all just flat out hate each other. Figure out some other means and measures, but try to doing that after at the birth era right there. I can tell you right now what I did. I didn't have the best communication. I tried to be there. I tried to do everything I can with within my power, I try to do the best I can within my power, and it just wasn't working. And it was more so because the person hated me for the things that I did in the relationship. So I wasn't the best boyfriend in the relationship. So I had to go through that, which takes me into my next point, which is family. You have to deal with their family and your family. And your family more likely is going to be on your side sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. They could just ride your back because you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. Like my mom rolled my back and told me that I was too nice, hence Pharaoh, Mr. Nice Guy, to my son's mother. And that's why, I kind of let her get away with murder in some cases, where she rolled my back and called me all kinds of names. I was a no good father, I was a weekend father, I was all that stuff. But once I got custody of my child, the tables had turned. I was a great father, and I did everything that I was supposed to do to take care of him. And she was so happy that he went with me and everything, and the stories that were told. But when it comes to family and having to deal with their family, whether it's directly or indirectly, you're going to have to deal with them in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it's to pick up, drop off, whether your child hears something that was said and then come back and repeat it towards you. You're going to have to deal with all of that. And I've seen it at its worst stage, and I've seen it at its best stage. There are some family members that I was cool with that wanted to come pick my son up, and I let it happen. There were some family members that I wasn't cool with that I couldn't readily trust. So I always kind of kept a good eye on them, just to make sure that there was no sneaky stuff happening or whatever the case is. But whether you have your child or not, whether you're dealing with your family or dealing with their family, it's always going to be something. My side of the family, my mom held me down, her husband held me down, and they did great things by me and my son while I had to go to work, go to school, and do everything that I needed to do to prepare myself forward to go ahead and take care of him. Now, on the other hand, when it came to her side of the family, it didn't work that well. The communication wasn't there. It was even difficult just to have her pick him up per the scheduling order that we received from child support court. So every situation varies. And as much as I try to keep the communication up with her and keep the communication up with her family, because I didn't want my son not knowing that side of the family, so I tried to do everything I could so he could be over there. You're only one person. You can only do so much. You can't force a person to be in somebody's life. You can't force a person to be a parent. You can't force a person to do right by the life that they brought into this world, because some people don't see it the way other people may see it. They may see it as, I brought this life to here, but I don't want to have anything to do with it. That's something that you got to live with. Or some people may feel like, hey, I brought this life into this world, and hey, it's not my problem, it's your problem. It's something that you have to deal with. As crazy and as unfortunate as it sounds, that's how people are. It's a nature that some people have, and you can't get around it. That's just who they're going to be no matter what. So you have to be careful about these families that you're dealing with. I honestly, if you really think about it, the person that you're dealing with is definitely a reflection of their family. And you have to see that in the beginning, because if they're a reflection of their family, and sometimes they may not be a reflection of their family, or they can hide those reflections really well. And you get caught up and you get lost in what you may perceive as love, what you may perceive in happily ever after, what you perceive as anything. And then you end up finding yourself entrenched in a midst of drama that you can't readily get yourself out of, and you're stuck. And it's one of the things that definitely had to take a step back and consider if this person is forever, temporary, or Is this somebody that I shouldn't mess with at all? And we all have been there, men and women. We all have been in situations where we should have went left and we went right. And sometimes you try to split the decision, and you can't readily split the decision because you still have the flip of the coin. It's either gonna be heads or it's gonna be tails. It's hard to even look at how many options you may have, trying to figure out what the best option is. But then the best option only comes down to 2 options. So then you have to go ahead and figure that out. So now let's talk about relationships. Now, every person you meet is going to have some type of relationship, and it's going to evolve to some other level as well. Now, when you co-parenting, you have to realize that you're no longer with this person, and they're going to go and hang out and be with whomever they want to be with. Is that person right in the head to be around your child? The people that you bring around, are those persons right to bring around your child? And this is something that both parties have to consider. Now, I know that there was a situation involving myself where some misinformation got spoken to my son, and I ain't like the information. So what did I call myself doing? I'm saying to myself, you know what? Maybe we all as parents need to get on the same page so we can work together to raise this child. But unfortunately, the other party didn't want to do that because they believed that I was so angry and frustrated by the misinformation that was given to my child that I should just go ahead and just forget it. And if I needed to talk to her boyfriend, then I need to address her first before I address him. Now, I'm going to tell you. Now, you know I ain't no liar or nothing like that, but I'm going to tell you this. The story goes, my son was invited out to an outing with a young lady. The young lady's auntie stated that she would go ahead and she would pay for the tickets. So I told my son, well, if she paid for the tickets, the most you can do is pay for the concession. So if she want popcorn, she wants some goobers, or whatever the case is, she can go ahead and have it, and I'll go ahead and fund it for you. Now, he tells this same story to his mother and her boyfriend. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated for my son, because he came back and told me. He said, well, Dad, I had a conversation with them, and they basically told me that a real man will pay for his own ticket. So I had to pause and I had to think about that for a minute, because I was driving him on the way to school, and I had to really consider the information that he was saying to me, because I didn't understand what he meant by a real man pays for his own ticket. In my mind, it has nothing to do with a real man. If he was taking this young lady out on a date, whether she asked him or whatever the case is, and the auntie wasn't involved, then yes, you go ahead and pay for both tickets, and I'll go ahead and fund it. Simple. But to sit here and say a real man will pay for his own ticket, while the auntie pays for her ticket and the young lady's ticket, and I guess they're gonna still pay for their concession stand food, to me was just kind of like, how did you even capture the woman that you have now with that type of mindset? Like, there's nothing wrong with going Dutch, but if you're the type of person that goes Dutch, that's cool. But in this situation, the auntie said that she's gonna pay for the ticket. So to me, it's a free ride, and the only thing you have to do is pay for the concessions. Or if y'all go out and get something to eat, you can pay for her food. I think that's only fair. So that was the misinformation that was given to him, and I was kind of like, you know what? Everybody has their preference, but when it comes to having to raise a young man in today's time, I'd rather us all be on the same page and addressing the situation accordingly as one, versus all this different information coming from here, coming from there, coming from a little bit of anywhere and everywhere, And he's looking like, okay, well, what's the right answer? What's the correct action? But instead of having the correct action and all of us working together, we can't even do that. Because why? Because everybody in some way, shape, or form, in any situation, has to be right. Has to be the most influential. And it doesn't take all of that. You don't need to be right. You don't need to be influential. We are all contributing to the growth, the health, the motivation, the wisdom, the courage of this child. And when you look at the big picture of it all, it's really not worth the fight or the hassle to be right when you're contributing to the growth of a child. I don't want to be right. I just want to make sure that he has the correct information, so as he goes forth in life, he knows how to treat women. He knows how to have adequate conversation. He can distinguish himself and articulate himself to somebody, whether he's talking about what he's thinking, about his emotion, about what has occurred to him, anything. But we can't do that if everybody is on a different page on how they raise a child, especially when you're co-parenting. You know, what you may want to do with your child is completely different what somebody else want to do with your child and how they want to go about it. So you have to be very intentional and considerate about the person that you bring into your child's life. Now, as my child got older and I began to date more, I started to understand there's certain women I didn't want to bring around my kid because their mindset wasn't positive, and it was more neutral towards the idea, especially if they didn't have kids, so they really didn't understand. But even if they did have kids, you know, the mindset there, you know, in some cases, and this is based off my experience, was to trickle, you know, the way quickly to a whole family. You know, it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll slow down. It's only been 3 months, and you already want to call a family. So, but everybody moves at their own pace, and everybody is looking for something different in that moment. And that's something else that I had to understand. But when you're talking about co-parenting, you definitely have to be a little bit more intentional and understanding to what people are trying to bring to the relationship, and are they motherly, you know, are they fatherly, you know, do they have that structure to bring into the relationship? Do they have that nurturing to bring into a relationship? Because if they don't, then, you know, you basically just have somebody there. You may not want them to hit your child or anything like that, but to provide wisdom, guidance, and a little bit of education goes a long way if they come with the right experience and the right ambition. So if we're looking at just those few points, it's so essential to be intentional in everything that you do. You know, everything that occurs after, you know, that young lady has a child, how you interact with the family, you know, making sure that, you know, your attention is purely on behalf of the child, regardless of the circumstance or situation. I mean, if it's just impossible to get along with the family, then, you know, by all means, leave. Don't even deal with it. You know, try to find another way, another means. Relationships, being very intentional about the relationships. You know, sometimes you never really understand or know who you bring in around your kids, and I've seen horror stories, and I'm sure you have too. So you have to be very mindful about the people that you bring into their lives, especially for the long term, even the short term, even temporaries. You know, even if they're a one night stand, you know, try not to let the kids come across them on scene. You know, try to steer away from those things, because that's impression. And I can tell you, when I was a kid, I seen my dad have women in and out the door. It was like a revolving door. Love them dearly, but those type of things leave impressions on kids and makes it a little bit more difficult to maintain and hold relationships because of the things that you see and you gain from your parents, you absorb from your parents. Some other things I want to throw out there is, you know, compromise. And I know we don't like to compromise in certain situations, especially as a co-parent. You don't want to compromise, you don't want to try to comprehend anything that they're going through. You really just don't give a fuck. I get it. 100% I get it. But sometimes you gotta realize, and I've been told this time and time again, it's not about you. It's about the kid. And once you start to act and react on behalf of the child, and you take yourself out of it, it's way more satisfying. It's way more gratifying to remove yourself from the situation and say, you know what? It's better for my kid to go over there and do this. I mean, unless that person just is a terrible person, and you would know how terrible they are. I can't tell you or justify that, but only you know how terrible they are. But if you know that it's not a safe environment, I am 100% on your side. They don't need to go over there. But if they have a moderate environment and they're trying, then let them go over there and be up under that person and learn who they really are. And if they decide that they don't want to deal with them no more, let that be their decision. Don't let it be yours. It's another thing that my mom told me was never to talk bad about my son's mother in front of him. And I've tried several times. It's not easy because I get frustrated. I have a low tolerance for ignorance, a very low tolerance for ignorance. But for the most part, I try to let him discern and decipher all the things that I see by himself. Now, I can see the bullshit. That's him and his mother. He can't see the bullshit. Just like some people may say, well, Imogene, you don't see the bullshit with your family. You're absolutely right. Because it's my family. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Some people in your family ain't shit. You ain't no need to lie about it. They ain't shit. And that's fine. But you still go hang out with them, regardless of whether they shit or not. You still hang out with them. You still go drink with them. You still go smoke with them. But they ain't shit. They out there doing something they ain't supposed to be doing. They probably cheating on their wife. They probably cheating on their girlfriend. All that stuff, and you still fuck with them. So, that's just how you interact with your family. So, but you gotta have the same intention and compromise. When it comes to the other party, especially when it comes to your child. Like, you may not want to fuck with them, and you may think they ain't shit, but let your child be the one to figure that out for themselves. But I'm MNG. I'll catch you on the next go around. Peace.